Welcome to another episode of The Greatest Pod, where we discuss and debate what makes something great. I'm Ron Swallow.
I'm Ed Greer,
And I'm producer Bill.
and today we'll be talking about the greatest weapons in pop
Mm,
culture. And that encompasses movies, TV, anything you want. I just thought that discussing the weapons it would spark all types of ideas from the politics of certain weapons to the heroes and what kind of weapons different heroes and villains use, the design of them, the sounds of them, all of that stuff is free reign. So guys, are there any weapons in movies that just jump right out to you as like, damn, got to talk about this one?
this might be an odd choice to come out with because it's not so much an offensive weapon, but the proton packs in Ghostbusters are the thing that immediately come to mind for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're so iconic. Every costume in existence, like every Ghostbuster costume, when you see a good proton pack, you're like, oh, fuck yeah, dude, you did it.
It's exactly the type of thing that like captures your imagination when you're 8 years old. And it also, from a story perspective, is doing like a lot of heavy lifting, first of all, and something really unique in that it's combining sci-fi and the supernatural. Like the proton pack is the bridge between the sci-fi elements of Ghostbusters and the supernatural elements of Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I like the workman like angle of it too. It's like a snare for catching a shark rather than a harpoon for stabbing a shark. If you were having a shark problem, you know what I mean? It's more like
Mhm.
that. There's something better about it, that it's a containment and they could put it in a containment unit.
Right. I like that there's like a weird cowboy angle to it because it is essentially like a giant lasso for ghosts. So that's
And
cool too because it's not like you're just shooting them to blow them up or something. Like it has a whole different way it works.
yeah, and even and on top of that, it's also like an exterminator, right? Like you got a pack that you put the raccoon in that you're gonna hold in there for a while, and you lured it into the to it with your little delicious rays of sunshine. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it also recalls the look of like an insect exterminator and
yeah,
the way they strap their packs on the thing. They just spray. It's the
yep,
exact same type of thing.
yeah, which is hilarious. It makes me wonder if like when somebody was sitting down coming up with Ghostbusters, they were like, "Bro, what if like you're an exterminator, but for like ghosts?"
Well, by all accounts, when Dan Aykroyd first wrote Ghostbusters, they were like in space, going to different planets and shit. So I, I don't think it started that way.
That would have been classic double triple mumbo gumbo.
Yeah,
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
We're on other planets and there's ghosts. It's like, okay, we're gonna go to He-Man's planet and deal with the dragons. It's like, okay, come on, man. There's all types of shit over there. We don't need dragons and krakens and stuff.
By the way, that'd be like the first edition anybody would put in there in a Hollywood adaptation of He-Man. It's like,
Yeah.
we've got this fantasy land. Why not throw some dragons in there?
It's
obviously
like,
there should be a
oh
dragon, and you should ride
yeah.
a unicorn. I don't like that whole tiger thing.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh,
She-Ra
riding
rides
a
a
tiger.
unicorn, by the way.
I thought it
Oh
was a
yeah.
Pegasus, but yeah, you're right. It's a
Yeah.
unicorn, and I'm glad she does because I love unicorns. I just want to point that out. And now I'm going to talk about my favorite weapon, a unicorn's horn. Um,
By the way, not bad. Shoots
it's
rainbows
pretty great.
and gores you.
Yeah,
So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and if it snaps off, then they what was that? The Conan the Destroyer? Like there was some fabulous statue. They put his horn back on and he turned into a monster. Like maybe that's what happens when you pull off a unicorn's horn. If you pull their horn off, they turn into like a dragon monster and fuck up your whole village.
I kind of like
Yes,
that.
that's fun.
fantasy.
So
You
Oh,
is
that
just you
dude.
just wrote
can
it. Well, then we
It's
got to go there, don't we?
it's like about poaching, right? It's like some motherfuckers are straight poaching unicorns, and then they start. Maybe that's a weird adaptation that they that they got.
Oh,
Oh, hey man, got somebody out there write it and send me 4 cents. Um, I think my favorite weapon. I'm gonna go old school. We talked about He Man. The fucking sword in He Man was such a big deal for my childhood for all sorts of reasons. When my album comes out, you'll understand why the sword is tied to a lot of things in my life as a youth. But the bottom line is everything about He-Man is the sword and the fight over the sword. Him
I
and
mean,
Skeletor, that is.
right down to the homoerotic overtones. It's all about the sword, baby.
Hey, we're gonna have a sword fight. Then we're gonna hash out whose sword is the best and where it should be sheathed. It's like, you guys having a top or bottom conversation? You shut up. This is a fantasy land. I won't have you. Yeah, I don't know. I think the reason I liked it was the weapon. It never was able to be used like a real sword in the cartoon. So you have to come up with all these different
Mm.
ways a sword could be used. Like he couldn't stab anybody. He never slashed anything. He would like throw it to stop a door from closing, or maybe tied a grapple hook to it at one time or something, or deflect energy blasts with it. It was like he had a sword and a shield, and only used the sword to shield himself from stuff.
Yeah, couldn't the sword itself produce energy blasts? Couldn't he like
Yeah.
shoot things with it? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think he shot himself and his cat though. Like I don't
Oh, yeah,
remember
that's
him.
right.
I don't remember him being like, "Hey, motherfucker, over there, bow, I got you with this
I
Ruger
think
sword." You
you're
know,
you're right. I think you're right. He might have done that to like one time to Skeletor or something like that. Like, help me, power of Grayskull, and then. But he also blocked all of the blasts with the sword too.
Oh,
Like
yeah, he got
any
Jedi on that shit.
yeah, any sort. Well, yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Jedi's, we might as well throw it in there. I do love me a lightsaber.
Look, I
I
mean,
have two.
swords in any form, by the way, just win this entire conversation. I don't know
okay, well
why.
let's do top swords then, because I think the
Sure.
top sword conversation. I mean, we've got to weigh in with the lightsaber. To me, lightsabers automatically just, if we have different brackets for the different swords, lightsaber is a first round draft pick. Neon Boudreaux, Shaquille O'Neal, first pick. Period. It's in the first bracket. So yeah, it's great from stem to stern. It looks super cool. It's a very innovative weapon. It sounds super cool. It
Yeah.
has all of these qualifications to wield it, until of course they let anybody grab one, which got all of us hot for Finn and stuff. Or and I guess but like Han Solo, right? Han Solo can grab it and cut open a tauntaun, but if he had to do anything else, he'd probably chop his arm off. It's this very peculiar weapon that you have to have a certain set of skills to wield. It's got everything you need to be a super weapon. And one thing it doesn't have is this goofy ass prophecy bullshit, because other people got them. And the fact that you can assemble it, you have to get dope enough to assemble one to even have one, is a big deal. So I mean, it's just checking all the boxes for fresh weapon. Just check, 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 check.
I do love the fact that like it is a very specialized weapon that's used by like very specific people, but it is also just kind of like work a day. Like you have to put it together yourself. Like it's just a mechanical thing. It's not like a magical thing. That's kind of
Mhm,
awesome. It
mhm.
also is like a purely cinematic weapon because portraying a sword made completely of light was certainly beyond the ken of like what comics could do back in the day. Only until we got digital coloring could you really imagine how that would look in print. And it was beyond the budget of most cartoons as well. So, you know, that idea of like I'm swinging around a giant rod of light is like it's rooted in cinematic language because you couldn't really experience the full glory of it anywhere else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. And who hasn't, like, as a kid, just taken a stick and pretended you're playing as a lightsaber? You know what I mean? Like, it's got the reach of everything. So, like, sure, you can go buy an expensive one that makes all the sounds and have a great time with that. I don't know anybody who would do something like that, like me. Um, but also, you can just take some sticks as kids and be like, no, I'm Darth Vader. No, I'm Obi-Wan. No, I'm Luke Skywalker. You know, whatever, and hit the shit out of each other. No, I mean, now your arm's chopped off. That's what I'm talking about.
How
And
many weapons can you just identify immediately based on the sound? Like
yeah,
that's pretty
Mhm.
iconic.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's up there. I mean, I don't know if we can really beat that for that, especially in the sword category. But there are a lot of things about just the weapons of Star Wars in general. Because I until recently, you could have a lightsaber. What's your lightsaber color? Blue, grape, whatever kind of color your lightsaber was. But now that they've introduced in the last, I guess, 15, 20 years, the dark saber, which was thankfully lost. I'm not gonna say how, but thankfully it was lost because that shit was bogging the whole damn Mando story down, in my personal opinion. But yeah, the dark saber was fresh as fuck though. Like what a cool person who wasn't like a little levitating sissy would make out of a lightsaber, like a Mando making a lightsaber is the dark saber, and it's like heavy, like you like mentally and probably physically heavy to even wield. It's got all these things where it's like if Han Solo picked, he probably could, Han Solo might not be able to pick up the dark saber at all, and there's just something fresh about that. You know what I mean? Like, because we see the Moff Gideon has some. It's like Mando leanings. He might even be an old school Mandalorian from back of the days. So like
Oh, you
all
think
that to
so?
say, I just love the dark
Possible.
saber. Yeah, I just love
There's
the dark. Just trying to leave it open ended for people who haven't seen the whole thing. But like, yeah,
yeah.
I just think the dark saber was a fresh ass lightsaber, but I can understand why they chose not to use it anymore, or have it have be paused for now because like I don't know. I kind of want to get into Mandalorians because I like all of their weapons and I like how funny all their weapons are. Like when you really look at all their weapons, they're all designed to fight Jedi. So like, okay, wait a minute. Hold on. These guys with stuff in their bloodstream that allow them to have telekinesis and telepathy are gonna come fuck with us. You know what I got? Lassos and flamethrowers and little darts and stuff, man. It's like, what the fuck? That is not what you need to stop telepathic telekinetics with laser swords. But somehow they get it over that the Mandos made a whole culture out of doing that. Oh, I jizz over shit like that, frankly.
Well, the
Yeah.
Beskar armor is like the fact that the Star
Yeah.
Wars universe has their own adamantium is kind of amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. So as far as good swords go, I'm gonna point out a couple. I mean, Conan's sword. I mean, it'd be remiss if we didn't bring it up. I'm only doing that so Ed doesn't have to bring it up and always be the guy who brings up Conan.
Conan's sword is like He-Man's sword without the magic, though. It's like I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah, but like when they talk about it like it's steel and all of that, like it's the Atlantean sword,
Yeah.
it originated from the tomb of an ancient king, all of that fun stuff. And
I guess I
I
feel
guess it is a basically simple sword though. You're right. It's just a relatively simple sword.
that's the thing. I sort of feel the same way about Conan's sword that I do about the Sword in the Stone. King Arthur's sword. It's a little bit
Excalibur?
like, yeah, Excalibur. It's a little bit just like, yeah, it's just a sword. You know, that's that's where you kind of lose me. It's like I need a sword that's got some tricks up its sleeve, which is why
Um,
I'm a huge fan of the Thundercat sword. The
oh yeah.
Thundercat sword, arguably the best sword of all time, maybe excluding lightsabers. But the fact that that thing, when you need it to throw down, it grows from a knife's length all the way to like a big ass sword length. The fact that it can project their bat signal up into the sky to call the Thundercats to it. The fact that it like is kind of alive, it's like implied that it's somewhat alive or has like a mind of its own or something. All that I love.
We won't belabor the fact that like you said, it gets longer. Because that boy,
Oh
if we're a
yeah.
tiny bit more sophisticated as kids, that would have been like crazy. I never thought about it. I never thought of it that
Nope.
way. Sometimes a sword is just a sword, a cigar is just a cigar. I never thought about it that way ever. And he's
Mhm.
even got like you got a sword and you got a special glove, I guess, for jacking off or whatever.
He literally puts the sword into the glove like
Yeah,
this
Yeah.
and
he
pulls it out
sheets
again.
it in the glove. He's like just oh man, I gotta
I
go to
love that
battle.
conversation too. Like if you're in the room coming up with ideas of where to put the sword, we don't want them to have a sheath on the side. It's kind of lame. He-Man already has the one in the back. What are we gonna do? I know, in the glove. We're gonna do it in the glove. We're gonna make it a
And then we're
cool lion glove. And we're gonna put it in there.
It's basically like we're gonna make his sword grow when he's excited. It's gonna come out of his hand, and it's gonna have a little bit of a mind of its own. I don't know what they were going for, but it all
No,
works, you know.
no clue. No clue what they were trying to say there.
Dude,
Do you
and it
think they
somehow
were? Do you think they were like just sitting in the office, like, okay, what's the closest thing we can make to a dick reference in Swords? How do we do this?
It doesn't feel like an accident. I'll just put it that way.
Well, and you know what's funny about all these swords as phallic symbols? Dig this. Going back to Conan's sword for 1 second, he found it, and that's cool. It was, some ancient king or whatever who he fantasized was Crom. He takes it, he kills the wolves to get his first pair of clothes that he's got on his own ever. That's a cool thing. But no less significant, he was riding around. Basically his dad made the sword in the opening of the movie and crafted it and folded it a billion times, all this different shit, poured the mold, all this kind of shit, and showed him that like steel is the only thing you can count on, all this kind of shit. And then the bad guys kill his whole village, spoiler alert, and take his dad's sword so that when Conan is defeating the bad guys at the end, he has to use the Atlantean sword to break his own father's sword in half to kill the enemy. And then at the end, he does a salute with the Atlantean sword and his dad's sword, and he crosses them like Wakanda type shit. And I'm just like, that part's cool. It's like you have to defeat, like, at a certain point, we all got to beat the shit out of our dads. Sorry. At a certain point, metaphorically, physically, mentally, spiritually,
Sure.
we have to beat our dads. And so that was Conan's moment of doing that. And the fact that there was a sword and all this phallic shit, it's really cool. I think I'm err on the side of really cool when we're looking at swords as dicks. Because you're right, Excalibur is a boring dick.
It's true.
Yeah, but here's something confusing: She-Ra's sword.
What's confusing about it? She's got
no,
a
it's
dick.
awesome.
What's
Sword of
confusing?
protection. She's holding
Don't
a
be so
dick.
close-minded, Ron. Come on.
She's holding a dick with a blue jewel in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's Prince Albert. She's got a Prince Albert.
Isn't that what they called that sword? That was the name of the sword.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The Prince Albert. That's the name of the sword. No, it's the sword of
Prince
protection.
Albert.
Oh yeah, see, because that's another thing, man. I guess they're trying to be all like women aren't as shitty as dudes, which I'm on board with that. But like the She-Ra had the sword of protection, He-Man had the sword of power, and it's like, okay, well, try to protect somebody when you ain't got no fucking power. I mean, come on, man. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but what's that saying? You'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. It's like, yeah, pretty much.
I don't know. A lot of
on
warriors
point.
protect gardeners because they give them food. Yada da da do do da ba do.
Was that your own, Ron? Like that was you were owning us with that comment?
Yeah. And also why I did jazz hands, because it's fucking ridiculous. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, nobody's ever like made someone do agrarian work for them because they had more power than them. That's
nobody's
never
ever
happened.
done that.
Yep, never in the history of the world. So that being the case, I like a sword to be. I think when a sword is the main part of the story, it does have to have some emotional significance, or else it goes away. Like the Sword of Omens has emotional significance. As you become a grown person, the Sword of Power and them shits don't have any significance. And as you like go beyond Fisher Price, My First Mythology, the Excalibur doesn't have any power. Or you know what I'm saying? It's just like the symbol of the kingship and the symbol of like the right person being in power must wield this thing or whatever, which is why I kind of hated the Darksaber thing and whatever. I just like, there's enough prophecies and crap in this crap. You know what I'm saying? Like, can we get to the real world where people put things together and they go to work and they hate droids and can I get the red state Star Wars, please? No, I'm just joking. But
you were just waiting for Andor. That's all you were waiting for.
Yes. But that's the thing. Mando was a perfect stopgap. Like, I don't want to sit in on goddamn Star Wars Senate meetings. Okay, I don't need to balance the budget of Coruscant, but I also don't need it to be for little babies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can we do a middle ground somewhere?
I'll take those budget meetings myself, but no cool weapons in those probably.
No, it's like not as many.
Who's in charge of all this bantha doo-doo that's in the streets? We need to get some droids. Like, oh, you got Teamster droids. The droids are sleeping on the job and not working. So like putting the real world onto Star Wars. I'm gonna try Andor. I'm gonna try the rest
Ed,
of
I
it.
will not have you besmirch union workers, you son of a bitch. This is a progressive.
Dude.
This is a progressive podcast, and I will not have you talk shit about unions, you motherfucker. All right, those droids weren't getting paid enough, and then they teamed up together to get paid well enough to actually make it worth picking up Poodoo. Okay, so
Okay. Hey, the
yeah.
Norma Ray of fucking robots.
Yeah.
Which I mean, but see, that's what I'm saying though. Even like in Solo, I love that girl, that lady robot. She was great. And then they just played her like she was a woke joke because she was trying to get robots to like not be slaves, and she was like, So like I said, and Star Wars is just doesn't seem to fit. Star Wars is for a
Ed,
lot of
she
people.
died for the fucking cause, bro.
She got deactivated for the cause, and then they put her
And then
head
her brain got
like
put
Ed
into a ship.
Gein.
Okay, I mean, come on.
Like Ed Gein. Ed Gein drives around with women's heads on his dashboard, not the Millennium Falcon. Oh my god, that was so nuts. That was
was pretty
so
wild.
nuts, dude. That was so nuts.
I dare not even wade into the ethical issues behind droids in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Dude, come on. That's what I'm saying. When Star Wars gets too real, shit gets too real. Like,
It does.
why
It does.
you could do 57 ninja flips? You ain't gonna go rescue your mama from a motherfucker, a little Muppet with wings. Then take your ass down there and chop that motherfucker's face off.
Poor Shmee. Poor Shmee.
Dude, some goofy rule, some asshole with a beard he just grew tells you can't go rescue your mom. Fuck that. That's up there with Kevin Costner dying in fucking Man of Steel, dog, for real. That's up there with just classic fuckery. But anyway, getting back to the weapons though. Yeah, nothing in Star Wars beats lightsabers.
That's true.
That's fair.
I do want to pick up a couple of good swords. We got Andoril from Lord of the Rings on the Return of the King. Andoril, chops off Sauron's fucking hand and then gets turned into another sword and also controls the dead.
Do any of us actually care or like that sword?
You watch your fucking mouth.
Dude, Bill almost got us in hot water. We're gonna get slammed all over the place because they said reading is lame in the last one.
Hey, I didn't say, wait a minute. I didn't say reading was lame. I said people who read are lame. Very important.
And I thought I was going to get us into trouble with talking about Phil Jackson, but then I realized half of our fans would be like, who the fuck is Phil Jackson?
Oh, more than half, completely.
Oh, God.
But that was a cool, I do love that one, but there's one that I think we can all agree on, and that's from Kill Bill, Tori Hanzo's Final Blade. I think that's one we can all agree is fucking rad as hell.
I thought that struck the exact balance that I'm looking for in my sword mythology, where it's not like overly magical, but there's something special about it, and like you realize the gravitas behind it. It's like Ed was saying, they do the work to give you the emotional attachment to the story of the sword and the people behind the sword, but it doesn't have to be like some weird chosen one prophecy.
Yep, absolutely. 100%. Okay, well, let's we could come back. We could circle back to swords. I don't want swords to dominate this. It's a very phallic conversation. I'd like the vaginal weapons. Let's name all the glaive from Krull. I'm sorry. There's been many boomerangs and many batarangs and things you throw around. Ain't nothing ever been cooler than that fucking thing in Krull. That movie ain't even good. You motherfuckers is listening to this thinking, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That movie sucks ass. That weapon was so fresh, it made you think the whole rest of it was dope. Just like the opening of Thundercats made you think that the rest of the cartoon was good. Also, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well. That opening trick your mind, and you start seeing it in those Peter Chung graphics instead of that bullshit that, oh, buddy. But anyway, heading back to the glaive. I think that's what it's called. And that motherfucker is sick. It's just a beautiful design. The sound of it when it was flying around and shit. Just a badass weapon, man.
Agreed.
I think
I think that's a great litmus test for your level of nerdery because, like, I have never even come close to seeing the movie Krull, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's how cool that weapon is. It's
Exactly.
transcended its movie.
Yeah.
Um, I think one that's also important, and every cosplayer probably has one hanging up in their house right now, and that's a chakram from Zeta.
What is that?
Oh,
Is it
what
like a
now?
is that a bolo?
You fucking
What
losers.
is it that circle thing she used to throw
Yeah, it's the
around?
circle thing. You throw the chakra.
See,
Oh,
vaginal weapons. See, that's what I'm talking about. I knew you could
love
come
it.
up with them, Ron.
It's a chakram. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Chakram. Chakram.
That is, by the way, that is a badass weapon.
It
Yeah.
And I mean, this almost opens up an entire new category of weapons, which would be boomerangs of a certain type. And
Hmm.
like, you got to give it up for the batarang while we're here. In
Oh yeah.
all of its
Yes.
many flavors. In all of its many flavors, like the true batarang that functions like a boomerang, the shuriken, the one with the rope attached that Adam West used to use to climb buildings, like all iconic.
All dope. All super dope. And we would be remiss if we didn't have some bat weapon in here. It would
But
not be
that's
the greatest pod, honestly.
oh, that's also funny though. Like the weapon evolved because you're right. It went to shuriken form in certain people's hands, i.e., Frank Miller's.
Yeah.
Into that thing. But you know what's interesting? Like just Batman sitting around, and even in the movies, that people are obsessed with the batarangs as shurikens. As these kind of disposable things. But I'm just thinking, in the comic books, the weapon is at its apex because it's like Batman sat around and was like, okay, now if a motherfucker whip out a gun, I need to throw something at him. But also, if I'm falling from a great height, I need to throw something up at that. But also, if I gotta hit a motherfucker around the corner, I gotta throw something at that. And he's like for days, weeks, months, just at the drafting table, just thinking about what shape that also follows the bat branding. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Branding important. Yeah.
somebody tells you make this ultimate boomerang, batarang, grappling hook device, but also you have to make it look a certain way because our CEO is a fucking asshole obsessed with bats. That's
Yeah.
like he was an employee of a shitty CEO making him make this ridiculous product,
Well,
and
look,
he did it.
I think it's pretty clear that one of the reasons behind that is you're you're in the crime bar, because of course there's a bar where all the criminals go hang out, right? And they're just like, nah, dude, I'm quitting. This is my last drink at the crime bar. I'm not doing crime no more. The other day, I was trying to rob a liquor store, and out of nowhere, my hand gets stabbed with a I can only explain it as a boomerang and a ninja star, but it was shaped like the bat. And I've got to tell you, not doing this anymore. There's a crazy man with bat orangs, and I can't go in to this crime stuff anymore. And you know that was one of the reasons he made that bat array, because he knows people are gonna see the bat and they're gonna be like, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
But that's wait a minute. Now that you say that though, this whole
Yeah.
batarang thing breaks down to me, dude. How
Oh,
could
it
they
does.
be strong enough to be useful, but also so disposable? You know what I'm saying? Like these are all
I
shell
often
casings.
I often felt that way about the Batarangs. I mean, not even so much necessarily about disposable, because of course we all know Bruce Wayne has unlimited money because
Right,
for
right.
story reasons. But how many of these things is he carrying around at any one time? And if they're actually doing damage, how heavy is that goddamn utility belt?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's as heavy as it needs to be, okay? Stop overthinking this shit.
My batarang weighs a ton.
And where does he store the grappling gun? God damn it.
Right. And
Great.
see, that's the
All
thing.
great questions.
But that's the thing that really does. But
What
let's
about
talk
the
about the
ones? Oh,
grappling gun. Let's talk about the grappling gun because, like, sometimes it has been able to be used as a weapon and do certain stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I just want to use this opportunity to rail against the grappling gun because, goddamn it, if you're going to believe, number one, if you're going to believe the best athlete and the best thinker and the best detective in the world are all one white boy from Gotham City, then you already in fantasy land, right? Because you're in Gotham City, that's fantasy land. But also, like, so if you're going to believe that, just believe a guy could throw something far enough to grapple and swing or glide or something. Just believe that. This
Really?
extra level of just shoot it real far and go Like grappling guns are heavy as fuck. A grappling gun that you could fit in your hand that could shoot far enough for bat purposes is kind of literally impossible. So
It's
more
probably shaped
literally
like a
impossible,
crossbow.
more literally impossible than the rest of Batman is what I'm saying. Like with all the gears and like the wire you'd have to grab onto, it rip your hands up even with great gloves. It's just too much. But like a guy with a rope that lives in a heavily dense urban area, I can get with that.
All right. Well, thanks for ruining the bat
It just
grapple. All
sucks.
right.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Bill, I interrupted you. Bill, what was that? I just
No,
hate
I
it.
was I'm shocked, first of all, that you are so
Yeah.
anti-grappling gun. But but also the solution in The Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman, I thought was kind of elegant for solving a lot of these problems.
What did he do
Where
in
it's
that
like,
one?
yeah, where it's like it's all integrated into the costume. So it's like the firing
Yeah.
mechanism is in the gauntlet, and then you can imagine that, like, the wire is like coiled in his back somewhere, and like the the arrows or the points or whatever are all loaded into the gauntlet. Like it's kind of a better solution than just having like some handheld device like stored somewhere on your person.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
and as
makes sense.
unrealistic as that is, it's pretty cool. And I like how he used it to repel as well. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he got to just walked down that one time. You know, stuff like that is cool.
And he used it offensively too. Like when he was fighting, the thugs in the nightclub, it's like he's using it to knock guys down, pull them around. I liked it.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
went full Mando
pretty
on
dope.
that one.
It's pretty dope. Okay, Mando. Yeah, you love those grappling hooks in that one. No problems with the grappling hooks in that, huh?
Because they don't grapple anything good. They got jetpacks, and
That's true.
they have Beskar armor to where they don't burn their buttholes off. So
And they're
I
used
mean,
more like
they're covered.
lassos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're covering their bases. Yeah, they grapple. Yeah, you've never seen a Mandalorian go, "Oh God, I'm falling from a great height, like 5 million feet. I'm going to shoot 1,000 feet up here and grab onto something." Never seen that before. It doesn't happen because it's an offensive weapon. So
Look, Ed, I've swung from so many ropes, I can tell you, while falling, and that's not a problem. It's really easy. Super
That's
easy.
your shoulders would be looking like fucking Martin Riggs from fucking Lethal Weapon. Okay, so what other throwing weapons could we think of? Because like honestly, at comic books, people throw a lot of shit at a lot of people. Like
true.
sticks,
I mean,
batarangs,
my mind immediately goes to the Moon Knight meme. Random bullshit, go. He just throws
Oh, what? How do you feel about the Moon Knight orang?
Yeah, I mean, I hated it in the TV show.
Yeah.
Couldn't have hated it more. But in the comics, he just has those simple like moon disc things that are essentially just ripping off Batman's shuriken, but they're not bad.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, they're not bad.
Blade's Batarangs, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
That was dope.
Oh yeah.
That
I mean, we need to talk about
Blade sword.
Blade's weapons, period. The silver dipped. I mean, we've given David Goyer. David Goyer has gone on to like piss off a lot of nerds, but that Blade script is amazing. And swords that are silver, dipped in holy water or whatever, and exploding vampires on contact is just too fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it matches to his hand.
Yeah, just that little security mechanism. Oh,
yeah,
so good, dude.
That was great, dude. Good call, guys, because that was a major selling point. It's like it just starts ticking, and it's like, what's going on with this sword? Ah! And your fucking hand looks like lunch meat dropped from a fucking Empire State Building. Yeah, man.
I mean, by the way, speaking of throwing things, not only did Blade throw steaks, but he also threw those syringes full of toxin at the end.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He used everything as a weapon.
Yeah.
A little bit of a bullseye angle with that guy.
Yeah. Well, his name is Blade. His name isn't Punch. True. So, but yeah, Blade had some fresh ass weapons, dude. God, please work on the. Please work on the Blade movie, God. please help
make it awesome.
Please help
make it
this
awesome.
giant conglomerate make a good Blade movie.
Did you guys want a little insider info on the Blade movie?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah, here we
go. Are we allowed to say it?
This too. I don't care. So nobody knows where I'm getting this from. So recently, they had spent $15 million. Marvel had building a huge backlot set for Blade in Georgia, where they film a lot of these movies. They recently tore it down completely, pushed the start of the movie back
Whoa.
to the drawing board with their production design. So that's a little worrying.
Yeah.
Dang. That is. Well, I just wanted to get it right. So if it has to, if but then again, Ron's gonna take up for the fucking Teamsters. Like, oh, the Teamsters didn't have they didn't have enough warning. They had to go tear down all their work. They didn't, you know, someone with
No,
those
they got
no show mafia jobs. They didn't even know they showed up on that day and didn't even have to work.
I mean, they all got paid, but I think what's
Yeah,
interesting about that is just like there's clearly some disagreements being had above the line, as they would say.
yeah.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
probably, I bet you somebody, is inspired by the original Blade movie and wants it to be dark. And Disney probably is like, well, we're trying to do 4 quadrant. Can you make it dark enough, but also real happy?
Yeah, I
right,
don't know, man.
right.
And you also
Well,
got to balance out like that's a Mahershala Ali kind of
mhm,
like passion project or star vehicle, so I'm sure he's got thoughts. Like
Yeah.
it's
mhm,
yeah.
I'm
yeah.
excited to see what they do with it either way. I mean, it is disappointing to hear that they had some kind of problems, but maybe they looked at it and filmed a couple of things and were like, oh no, this looks like shit. Let's do something better.
Well,
So
from what
Yeah.
I understand, they don't even have a locked script. So
Well, yeah, these motherfuckers who be building sets before you got a script, man. I know a lot of movies we love have done that as well, but the odds aren't in your favor
agreed.
when you do shit like that. It's like, oh,
Agreed.
we got to release it on July 4th. Wow, I gotta see fireworks in the sky when this movie comes out. It's like, oh, do you got a script? Fuck no. I don't get that. But okay, throwing stuff. I just think most throwing things would have to be heavy enough to hit somebody good, and then you go get it and you reappropriate it, which is why I always love Daredevil sticks. I don't rather
Yep.
belabor it too much, but like the aerodynamics of them bouncing around, and the improbability and the ridiculousness of them bouncing around, much like Captain America's shield. But for
Mm.
some reason, I always bought it more.
Agreed. I like even in comic book form, I was never a huge fan of the Captain America shield throw. Like it was always a little bit like, all right. And like they executed it really well in the movies, but even
Hmm.
still, you're a little bit like, all right. But those sticks, like, I don't know why. Yeah, they're easier to get behind. Maybe it's because of Daredevil's power set. Maybe it's because like you have a better frame of reference as a human being for like, oh yeah, throwing a stick made out of some super hardcore carbon fiber or something. Like I know what that would be like. But yeah,
Hmm.
those get by on me or get over on me.
Yeah.
That's those are the words.
I think it actually makes a little more sense because like there's less, like if you there's less, the bounce is going to be predictable because there's less space to do the bounce with. If you
Mm,
practice enough with stuff like that, you could probably pull off something, you know, realistic with it. Whereas with the shield, I don't know how many times I would have to practice throwing a frisbee. You ever thrown a frisbee, you guys? That shit is wild. And there are people who are great at it, but
I
like
mean, I'm pretty
it's
good.
even people who are great at it, it's still like will fly off to the right from time to time. So if you're trying to throw it up against a metal thing and bounce it around a corner, fucking good luck.
Well, I just
Mhm.
it would be weird to. I think Homeboy would have to have some kind of metallurgy or geology knowledge. Like, okay, if I throw it like this off of sedimentary rock, it can
Right.
hit something made of metal and have a such and such bounce to hit this Hydra guy in the neck. You know what I mean? Like, you have to understand the surfaces, whereas everything's concrete in the city, more or less concrete or like iron.
But you could also just buy the fact that, like with Daredevil, with his sonar sense, like he has some innate just sense of like what the reflectivity or bounciness of any given material is. Like I buy that.
Yeah, absolutely. That works for me. I agree. It 100% works for me. So how do we feel about the Ninja Turtles weapons?
Iconic across the board. No notes.
Iconic. Yep.
Yeah.
Iconic. Although I will say
Who's
dual
who's your
size, Dual
Yeah.
size would be really fucking hard to deal with in a battle. Like you don't have hands for your whole battle. And I'd say dual size and dual, dude, just carry one sword. You know what I'm saying? Just get one sword, kids. Just one sword. It's fine.
It looks so much less sweet, though. That's the thing.
It does. Two swords
does.
looks
Two swords,
amazing.
Like, look, the couple of times they had two people, a person used 2 lightsabers. Are you fucking kidding me? That shit was dope.
Well, then General
So-
Grievous is better than all of them because he could use
That's
like 7.
true.
Like 9. Yeah.
100%.
You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah, it is true.
Uh,
It's 100%
He's got a
true.
dick saber
the other one I
spinning
wanna-
around.
The other one I want to mention, though, as long as we're talking ninja weapons. Uh-oh.
I
As long as we're
apologize for
talking
everything
ninja
that just
weapons,
happened there.
Let's give let's give a shout out to the razor ball, whatever you want to call it, that Go-Go uses in Kill Bill. Like,
Oh, yes.
a really right. That's a really interesting take on a mace. It's not quite a spiked ball. It's got the razors, and the way she uses it as like a swinging weapon is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is a dope ass weapon. One of my favorite, like, talk about cosplay. That's one of my favorite things to see is when someone has a really good replica of that, and it's obviously not a real version of it, but like it still looks dope. That's good.
Is there another reason you like to see those cosplays around?
Nope, not saying anything.
Dude, I think what's ill about all the weapons that are on like chains. There's something fresh about that, like the fatal flying guillotine or guillotine. It's just like a bird cage you throw around people's heads and you pull it and blades come and they chop people's heads off and pull the head to you.
Oh,
That's
man.
an ill ass weapon, dude. That's like the movie's pretty okay, but like that's a great idea.
What movie is that from?
Yeah, it's the flying guillotine. Yeah, that's the movie.
It's old. It's an old ninja movie.
It's like
Interesting.
Shaw Brothers. It's Shaw Brothers
Yeah.
martial arts movie. Got to give props to that. And Kung Fu
Well, let me
weapons
just
are
say,
cool.
yeah, if we're going to talk about kung fu weapons, I'm just going to say Bruce Lee nunchucks. Period. Just Bruce Lee and nunchucks. It doesn't even matter what nunchucks they are. I guess that's really just because it's Bruce Lee.
Yes, that is.
And Game of
Yeah.
Death, those are pretty dope. The movie itself is terrible, but the Game of Death chucks, pretty fun.
Okay, wait a minute. Why did Donatello have 2 bow staffs? Everybody else has 2 things that they wield improbably in this ridiculous manner. Why didn't he have 2 bow staffs?
Because bow staffs are like 8 feet long.
Okay,
Yeah.
the swords are long when the turtles are drawn
No, they're
properly,
like-
as we said.
They're like
When the
3.5,
turtles-
4 feet long.
Okay,
is the sword.
when the turtles are drawn correctly, they're 5 feet tall. So one 5-foot person is swinging around 2 3-foot things. That's insane. They're as big as him, and he's got 2 of them.
And that's why he has to use 2 hands when he uses a bow staff. Also, you use 2 hands to fight with a bow staff, dude.
You
That,
use
I
2
think,
hands
is the
to
big
fight
one.
with. You use 2 hands to fight with nunchucks. Nobody wields 2 nunchucks together. If you ever saw somebody with 2 nunchucks, they're getting their ass kicked. That's why they're swinging around 2 nunchucks.
Bruce can do 2 nunchucks, but you know,
Barely. The most iconic thing he did with nunchucks was with 1 fucking pair of nunchucks. 1. The classic, you got the glow. That isn't 2 pairs of nunchucks. He just was messing around with that. But when he really got down to fighting, he used 1. You can only ride 1 horse. You can only use 1 pair of nunchucks.
You make an interesting point, Ed, and now I'm just thinking that all the Ninja Turtles have backup weapons, except for Donatello, I guess.
Yeah. I just think it's
interesting.
unfair to Donatello. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think he would have graduated to a telescopic bow staff.
Right.
A long time
Like
ago.
a Tim Drake Robin. Just
Yeah.
pulls it out of the utility belt
Yeah.
and it expands.
Yep. I think he would have graduated to telescopic a long time ago. This whole wood jazz. Oh, you know, now all the turtles have like energy blades and stuff. It's like Ed ruined the turtles. Did you hear him on the podcast? He ruined. Michael Bay heard that shit. Now they all got lightsabers. Thanks, Obama. I was like, no, I'm sorry.
I mean, you know,
That is the future liberals want. That's
The laser weapons for turtles.
You know, let me bring in since we are talking turtles, are the Mousers a weapon? Because they're a robot. right? But they're like a disposable, mass-produced robot that are essentially just used like a weapon, which brings in like a whole other category of potential weapons.
That's
That is.
interesting.
What are some other viral weapons besides the human cold and War of the Worlds or whatever?
I mean, the day the Earth stood, actually, the GI Joe movie, the first GI Joe movie, had the gray goo. That was like their big thing. They had the nanite cloud that could go and disassemble things, which I guess is a weapon.
Yeah, that first GI Joe movie is like a fucking Mad Libs or something, like as far as like what they're doing.
Okay, so here's another question: is the Iron Man suit a weapon?
Yes, the senators think so.
According to the U.S. government, yes, it is.
So then
Very
I say
much
that's
so.
pretty dope. I want to fly in the Iron Man suit, even though realistically, I would crash one time and break all of my bones and then die. But still,
nothing defies physics better than the Iron Man suit.
seriously.
Hey man, you're
100%.
telling me he wouldn't be pulling some serious G's flying at Mach 3 through the city fighting Chitauri and stuff? You're telling me the G's wouldn't flatten his skull inside of that thing?
I mean, also the fact that he can pull any G's at all with no discernible fuel source on his body.
Hey,
Put that aside, okay? It's magic fuel, all right? Science,
uh-huh.
it's science magic, but it's magic.
but dude,
Science,
if he
it's
really
science.
did have to refuel like a plane, though, like just like he flies 20 minutes outside the city. Hey, Happy, bring the plane. I'm almost out of fuel. If Happy's gonna fly this supersonic jet up to him, give some more fuel, just so he can fly another 20 minutes. Happy, I need you again, bud.
Yeah.
Okay, the arc reactor
Exactly.
is all the energy he needs. He doesn't even need.
What
Energy
about the
doesn't work that
combustion?
way.
What about the
Energy does
combustion of the
exactly.
engines? What energy? Fine, the energy to do the
Look,
combustion is fine. What what
How
engines
does he
are there?
produce thrust? How does he
Yes.
produce thrust?
with electricity.
That's not how any of this works.
Magnetic
and see,
repulsors.
but this conversation we're having on all of our parts, frankly, is why people think that the actual nerd is dead and has been replaced by all the people who just consume media. Because like the actual nerd is somewhere is somewhere screaming at the device if they even like stuff like this, going, well, actually, the coefficient of the and they're breaking it down like how much fuel you'd have to have, how heavy the armor would have to be, and all of that would be unwieldy. Thusly, you guys are stupid for trying to be mad. You know what I'm saying? That 100-foot with 300-ton fuel tanks on it, Iron Man isn't the de rigueur Iron Man. Because who the fuck would ever want to watch that? Who'd ever want to take part in that? You know?
No, I mean, it would be terrible. Like, that is the suspension of disbelief you need to enjoy this stuff. But it is also fun to talk about as long as we're talking about weapons.
Yeah. I mean, and all the weapons that it has on board. We talk about how it's impossible to put all that fuel on there. This motherfucker got more weapons. The unibeam from his chest, repulsor rays, which I never really understood either. I don't. How did repulsor rays actually work? It's not a gust of air.
It's from his arc reactor. It
Ron,
sends
you
out
if you don't stop
a
fucking
beam
saying
of
arc
energy.
reactor.
Okay,
But
I
wait,
don't understand what's so confusing about this amazing technical breakthrough that sends out pretend energy stuff. Okay,
Thank you for giving me a chance to climb up on a soapbox, Ron. Here I go. All right. This is something that pisses me off, and not seriously, but actually, if that makes sense. And it's the fact that energy doesn't work that way. Like, any weapon, any superhero that fires energy from their hands, what is that? What is that? That energy isn't that, right? Like, if you can see it, if it's producing light and has some sort of physical effect on the world, that has to be either like heat or plasma or like something with an actual definition, because energy is just the ability to do work, as we all learned in like 6th grade science. So really, the only two forms of energy in the universe are kinetic energy and potential energy, right? And that just means the ability to move something. So you don't fire energy, you fire something else that may be generated by a form of energy, but like energy itself isn't a thing. And like this goes all the way down to like Superman's eye blasts. If they're heat, fine. But if they're physically impacting something and like knocking it backwards, that's nonsense, because what is that? What has momentum and force in that beam of light? Off my
Hey,
soapbox.
did you learn that reading a goddamn book or something? Jesus.
Well, it was to Bill's defense, it wasn't a fantasy book.
True.
But on some real shit though, I am on both sides of this because I love my suspension of disbelief. It's the only way I can handle my life. Like if I didn't delude myself about how bad my life was, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be too depressed. So I live in a world of delusion all the time. However, the thing that I've always hated was like, okay, this bitch uses sound to change it into lasers, and she's gonna shoot it at this lady who uses Fruit Loops to make magnetism, and their energy is hitting each other.
Yes.
How?
I hate that.
What's
shit.
hitting? Like, you know what I mean? There's what?
Ugh.
There's nothing to. You can't shoot
So-
energy
so
at
you
other
guys-
energy. That's stupid as fuck.
You guys
And
like
they've been
Dragon
doing it
Ball
for
Z
years.
better then?
What? How does it work in fucking?
Actually, it
Dragon Ball
doesn't.
Z?
Their energy does work like that. It does.
Yeah, I was just saying. Isn't
It
the
does
Kamehameha,
explode
it's
and it
just a
can knock you
beam of-
flying. It's
Yeah.
key, but it is key energy, which is probably, since it's make believe, a little different than real energy.
Well, if it's make believe, it could be whatever the fuck you want it to be, I guess.
Yeah, that's the whole point. But when
Okay,
they
well-
punch each other, that's when the big impacts happen. Big bubbles of energy when they're punching
Yeah,
each other and shit.
As
like
it
that.
should
Yeah.
be. As it should be.
So, okay, wait a minute. We left out one weapon of Star Wars, and I want to go back all the way to Star Wars, but just one weapon, the Death Star. We left out the Death Star. Death Star is a giant lightsaber that you use on other planets, and I think that's pretty fresh. I'm not counting that rest of that shit that blows up whole solar systems. Come on, man. You guys are better than that. I thought you
No,
were
I mean
anyway.
my favorite is the miniaturized Death Star tech from episode 9, I believe it was, where they just have bunches of Death Star rays.
Oh yeah, but that they pull up so much stuff with that. But yeah, and honorable mention for Beskar armor, honestly, because you can make spears that could fuck with lightsabers. You can make armor like adamantium has to be up there as one of the greatest weapons of all. I mean, shit, we're gonna talk about
Wolverine's
your boy.
claws.
Wolverine's claws are. I mean, but okay, let's finally have it out. Wolverine's claws or Captain America's shield. Better use of adamantium. Final answer for all of geekdom. We're gonna decree which one is more better.
I thought Cap's shield was made out of.
It's made out of adamantium
vibranium.
And vibranium. In the fucking shit, they didn't have the rights to adamantium because they hadn't bought Fox yet. So they said it's made of pure vibranium, but it's made of a special blend of herbs and fucking spices of vibranium and adamantium, which is why it's so dope. Like it's got all the tensile strength of Wolverine's claws, but the energy absorption abilities of vibranium.
Which is why he can fall through a fucking window 3 or 4 stories and put the shield down, and it absorbs the energy instead of smashing the fuck out of him. Even though that obviously doesn't make any sense, but still.
Well, Andy's tough, his body's
He
tough.
is super tough.
Yeah. Well, see,
look,
that's
you want to make your argument about claws, right? We love Wolverine's claws, but that doesn't make any sense. Where the fuck are they sheathed? What mechanism is
there?
and if are they bone claws?
No, motherfucker.
No.
Why would you even?
Because if they're bone claws, that makes even less sense.
Bone claws don't make any sense because even retractable talons.
Yes, if it came out of his fingernails, like cats, which technically they just can sheathe them. They're not actually like, they're not like they're sort of there's little muscles, and when they flex the muscles, the claws come out.
So that's my argument, though, about the bone claws, is the only way for him to effectively pop and resheath the claws is if they were bone claws, because he would have to have specialized muscles in his anatomy that would allow him to do that.
You're right. Yeah.
So if they were just implanted,
No,
but
that's not. I don't know. No, they're bionic housings, guys. That's always been how they've been described, as bionic housings, i.e., missile silos embedded in his forearms that through some science he could communicate with to whatever, which is why they always pop out, and which is why he always cuts himself when they pop out. They're not
Yeah.
part of him, so
But
he hurts every time he does it.
also, but let's talk about like okay, so your wrists bend.
Yeah, but the rest of your forearm doesn't.
But it's coming out of his thing right here.
Here's my thought, though.
Okay.
I get it. So here's the thing. I've always wondered if Wolverine had his hand like at 90 degrees with his forearm, could he pop the claws through the base of his hand?
I'm here to answer that. The answer is yes.
Yes.
That is
okay. Good.
Oh my god.
Good.
That is the case. If they were the original, as I push my glasses up and comb my gray hairs out of my beard, the original conception was these fuckers caught an animal and they put shit in it, like we three. That's all it was. It wasn't we're gonna take this special animal and tape a bunch of metal over all of his powers. That wasn't it. All of his claws that he already had, and his teeth are capped. The motherfucker looked like Riff Raff or something. You know what I'm saying? The rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, that's not the point of Wolverine. The point of Wolverine is also why aren't his teeth metal? Why aren't it? You dipped the skeleton. No, you dipped the skeleton.
No, that's a great
in
point.
adamantium. His teeth should be metal.
If you put all of it through that, yeah.
Well, theoretically, if you're engineering the adamantium around his bones, you could just choose to leave the teeth out of it.
Yeah, you could.
Aesthetic reasons.
Yeah.
Who wants to see that?
And his teeth will grow back when you knock them out. So.
Oh yeah. Well, they wouldn't have to grow back if they're admitted, but then they're like, "Hey man, we've captured this forest creature, enslaved him, and made him an assassin. We don't want to fuck his teeth up. That's not too much. That's too much.
That's just cool.
That's just mean. I mean, really,
yeah. Motherfucker can't eat a sandwich. Like but all I'm saying is Wolverine's shit was so good, and they've just ruined it with all the rest of that extracurricular bullshit. The
I just gotta
situation, it's just that's all bad. All of that.
I just gotta say that I do love how hard you guys worked to make Wolverine's claws work, but you can't let anyone shoot a laser out of their fucking
physical.
hand.
It's physical. Now hold on. Just like, okay, Bionic Man.
Okay,
let's get into it.
If you want to talk about it.
Bionics. Let's talk about Bionics.
Wolverine's claws should be 4 inches long.
Well, I'm looking at my forearm right now.
They don't come out of his forearm. They come out of his hand. If they came out of his forearm, I'd be okay with that. They come through his forearm, out of his hand.
Right. They're here. And then they go
he couldn't bend his elbow. He couldn't bend his wrist most of the time.
No, they're see, my thumb is where they're sheathed in his arm.
This is hilarious. There's no way that you could have 2 foot long claws.
They always draw them way too long.
Exactly.
They always draw them.
That's why I was saying,
drawn them way too long for 100 years.
If they were like 3-inch long claws or 5-inch long claws, I could get behind this. But when they're like 2 feet long, it doesn't make any sense.
I'm going to measure my forearm. I know for a fact I got 11 inches of claw. The only 11 inches I got on my body, besides maybe my feet, is his goddamn forearms. My forearm, I know for a fact,
5 inches. No.
is about 11 inches long. So let's say 10 inches. I think his claw should be about 10 inches long. But I guess that's not effect with Joe Madureira decides they're 5 feet long, they just become 5 feet long.
Then they got to come out of his top of his wrist. They can't come out of his hand.
Why?
No, they shoot into they shoot into basically a holding thing, and it comes out.
Oh, okay. So I see what you're saying. What you're saying is there is an empty cage in his hand, and the blades shoot past his wrist into the cage, then out his hand.
Right. Yes. And that way he could bend his wrist. And then when he wants to bring them back in, he bionically communicates and they shoot back up into the Elon Musk turbo shoot.
So they can't come out all slow like they have them do on the other ones. because that doesn't
That
make
is-
any sense.
That is
The only-
absolutely correct,
Ron,
which is why
I mean,
that shit sucks.
Here, look, I'm going to illustrate it for our YouTube viewers with my Apple Pencil here. Here's the claw, and you could see
Okay.
it can get about this long, right? It's like from the knob on the outside of your wrist to just before your elbow. But
And
like,
obviously, he would have like a big housing on his forearms, basically. So he should
Bionic
have giant,
housings,
he
which
should
is
have giant
literally
forearms.
it's
So
literally
you're-
been. He does
you're-
have giant forearms. Number one, and you go ahead.
yes,
Go ahead.
but also your forearm is made out of two independent bones that twist and turn. So in the middle of those two bones is the housing.
This is a terrible argument. I really, I think
There's
you
a
guys are wrong.
housing inside. There's a housing near one of your. Near,
I
what's
do
that,
love it
ulna
though. It's
or
great.
whatever. But again, this it's nowhere near as ridiculous
It
as
is.
I shoot sound at you. You shoot a laser at me. Sound and a laser hit each other and nullify each other somehow. Does
No,
that make any
doesn't make
sense
any
on
sense,
any
no.
level? Okay,
100%.
so with bionic housings, I believe, and again, that's how it's written in the Marvel universe. I didn't make
Yes.
that up. It isn't
I know.
Ed Greer's bionic
I know that.
housings. So I'm just saying, like in that way, it's just
You know what,
like
that's the business I want you to open.
like a blade inside your body. I know for a fact, real life people have had blades implanted inside their bodies. You know what I'm saying?
Also-
Not to pop out, but you know.
Ron, I just popped a link in the chat to an X-ray view of what Wolverine's forearm would look like. Actually, shoot, this is the forearm of Lady Deathstrike, which has even more claws in it, but it's still the same principle.
Oh, that's ill. Pop it up for the YouTube viewers. So, like I'm saying, I'm picking Wolverine just because that's the best way. And we talked about it on our Super Soldiers episode, I think. Just if you're gonna make a super soldier, that's one of the greatest articulations of that concept. He's self-contained. And I think Bill pointed out the murder weapons can come out of his body, stab somebody, then go back into his own body. So there's no murder weapon for any crime he would commit or any assassination he would commit. There's just a lot of hot shit. Okay,
Yeah.
here we go.
So this is the one that it's the big one over here that I'm trying to point out to
Yeah.
everybody. You know, the claws are just in there alongside his bones, and then they just shoot out past the wrist through the channels. And in this case, it's through her fingers, which I will say makes a little bit less sense, but it looks like they're giving her little housings at the tips of each of her fingers. But yeah, for Wolverine, it'd be a very similar thing.
That looks super realistic. It's great.
Oh yeah, and that's obviously what I've always been consulting throughout my life. My beautiful, beautiful baby Elliot R. Brown doing his damnedest to make Wolverine make sense in the Marvel universe.
And you know what? Actually, if you look at that
handbook.
picture, it kind of is. I mean, your head is not longer than 10 or 12 inches, right?
Correct.
The claws actually make about a decent sense there.
Dude,
His hair's another 6 inches, but still.
Well, again, it's like how we have these weird conceptions of but that's another reason why. And this, you know, as we talk about weapons and we're winding down here, when you are depicting comic book things on the big screen, when you're depicting real things, comic book things on the big screen, to be too faithful to the drawings is insane. Because you're right, Wolverine's claws have to be 57 feet long. He'd also have to weigh 600 pounds. The Sam Keith Wolverine, as drawn, would weigh 600 pounds and be 8 feet tall, probably. So it's like, of course, you can't really do that, and it can't be like a comic book. But that's the beauty of comic books. Once you get it into a real life thing, I would have just, why did I have to watch Hugh Jackman, you know, like an old man trying to get a boner, his fucking claws out of his wrist for the past 20 years when that doesn't even make any fucking sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just
I do
sad.
like when he flipped somebody off with it, though. That was pretty great.
Well, like,
Well,
yeah.
Or when
since
he
it's
does
Cyclops.
2 of them and then the second one doesn't, the middle one doesn't come out. He's like, you want me to bring out the middle one? I'll murder you. You know, like that's pretty
On
Well,
either side of the face, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I hope I've never seen this, but I thought I saw one time he popped out one of the middle claw just a little bit. I'm like, no. They come out or they go in. It's like at a club. You're out or you're in. You can't. There ain't no in and outs. You're out or you're in. That's to me. That's the clause. You can't just sort of 6-inch extend one to pick a lock. You can extend one to pick a lock or to chop the door across apart, more likely. But I don't think you can just select an amount or any of that stuff because you have to send your bionics. It shoots out. And let's talk
You
about
also got to
bionics.
keep your hand a very specific way. So,
Right,
Correct.
right,
yeah,
Straight,
right.
like you throw a punch.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And that's another thing. Wolverine would have no problem remembering that as a rule. If you're going to fire your claws, just do a good serious punch and you won't hurt yourself. But don't do it while you're falling, bracing yourself against the fall or anything. Don't instinctively do it and slice yourself up. It'll take you
I've
a
always
whole
wanted
5
to,
minutes.
I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but I've always wanted to see Wolverine like in a position where his hands are folded back by an enemy or something, and he just pops the
And he's like,
claws right through the base of his palm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's actually pretty great. You should draw that.
It should come in. It would definitely come in handy. But okay. Well, maybe this is where we go. Is there anything that's competing with some of the weapons we've talked about before? Are there any weapons that have been left out of the conversation from like our lives? Because obviously somebody would want to say some weird katana I'll say one from my personal life. Jubei Kibagami's katana from Ninja Scroll is the motherfucking shit. And he lives in a world where, he has a line in the base of it where he can like hang off of his sword as a grappling hook. He can pull his sword to him. If it gets separated, it's like a tethered, like a surfboard, right?
Oh,
He
that's
can never
dope.
be too far from his sword. So if you punch him across the room, and you're between him and his sword, he can drag it between your legs real quick and get into his hand and slice you up. Like fucking Jubei Kibagami's sword is so sick. Ninja Scroll to me is the best anime ever, and all the old men think so. So trust me, I understand how I sound, but like that shit was real. It was
Ninja
real
Scroll
as
is dope.
fuck,
Ninja
hard
Scroll
as
is dope.
fuck, greatest designs. Yoshiaki Kawajiri, it's just the man. But yeah, Jubei Kibagami's sword. If you haven't seen Ninja Scroll, look at his sword. It's so sick.
Speaking of hands, I actually really dug what they did with Ulysses Claw's fake hand with the sonic weapon underneath in the MCU.
Yeah.
Which I was actually always a fan of Claw's, even when he had the weird dome with the antenna, but just like having the hand that could blast the sound waves like that, I always thought was pretty dope. And the way they had like the prosthetic open up and the gun come out of it in the MCU, I thought was awesome.
Yeah, agreed. That's pretty dope.
Mhm.
Rocket Raccoon's gun. I'll just say that.
All right.
I like a gun that builds upon itself. It's pretty entertaining.
So you loved Bloodsport's gun from the Suicide Squad?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was pretty
Okay.
great.
Okay,
All
yeah,
right.
let's start an impromptu list right now. Top 8 terrible weapons. That fucking gun from Suicide Squad. Discussed. I fucking hated that, dude.
You didn't like the buildy gun?
Oh my god, it was so bad. And I remember I remember some fucker got on the internet, on God's internet, and said, man, you Marvel movies never do and I'm not, this isn't pitting against Marvel. Fuck Marvel, fuck all those Sri Lankan embryos that do all their effects. I don't care. I don't care. I don't have a dog in that fight. I'm saying they were like, they say DC never does any cool CGI. Well, check this out. And they showed that scene of Bloodsport putting together that goofy ass Tonka toy gun, and it's shooting some shell that's like, where did shell come from, Ron? Where the shell was like probably 5 feet long or something, and it's coming out of a microscopic gun,
It grew.
God, it'd be such
After
an
you
expert
fire
troll.
it starts. It's made out of nanobots.
Oh my god! I mean, and
Self-assembling shells.
even if they want to do something like that, off the top of my head, you have a big ass gun, right? A big unwieldy fucked up gun, but as you shoot it, it gets smaller because it's shooting compartments of itself or like sections of itself at your enemy. Off the top of my head, that would be better than a gun that
That'd be
goes from
fun.
this big to like some giant size that takes giant ammo. Speaking of which, the noisy cricket. I think that's one of the best weapons in film history because it's so little and unassuming. From Men in Black, that little
Yes.
baby Derringer
Oh,
gun
okay,
that's
yes. I
that
was
could, like,
literally about to bring that up.
yeah,
When
the
he thinks
ultimate
it's not going to be a
nullifier.
good
Yeah.
weapon, and it's great. That's
Also-
just a good comedy moment too.
I mean, the neuralizer from Men in Black is a pretty
Oh,
dope
shit.
weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god. You know what? The neuralizer is such a great weapon. They've been using it on us for so that we can have the same political discourse for the last 100 years, right?
Oh,
Nobody
Jesus.
remembers the last time a robber baron came in and looted the country for their own ends. So like we
No,
just do to
we
repeat it
keep doing
over and
that.
over.
Give another person that, just a little
Oh,
bit, just a tiny bit better each time, but not much.
yeah,
That's
not
my favorite
much.
weapon. Money.
Yeah,
Favorite weapon.
So by that definition, Batman is definitely the most deadly man in the world.
If we do want to talk least favorite weapons, let me be the first to throw in for Chewbacca's crossbow gun, which we
Oh
talked a little bit about
shit!
offline.
That shit don't make no sense.
yeah. In the scheme of a Star Wars world, I gotta say the indignities that they heap upon Chewbacca in general is just a load of bullshit. Like, get this walking carpet out of my way. They're like racist to him all the time. He's got a gun that looks like a crossbow. It has to look like a crossbow
For no
because
reason.
clearly he is a savage who lives in the trees. So why would he have just a regular laser gun, even though they have an advanced society that also goes to different planets?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I
Yep.
don't know, Ron. I'm glad that nobody can defend this ridiculous. But you know what's so funny?
It does shoot really hard, though.
It shoots
Well, listen, I
hard
got something that does that
lasers.
too, but
Oh, yeah.
It shoots like ultra hard lasers. Like when they
Yeah.
basically had Rey or whoever the fuck shoot Kylo Ren with that thing, and then Rey had a fight with him. It was like this dude got shot with Chewbacca's gun, and he's having a fight with Homegirl, and he just barely lost. That means he's so powerful. Blah blah blah. Such a worthy successor to Darth Vader. So they used Chewbacca's dumbass gun to make a really important plot point in Star Wars lore.
Yeah, although they do something really cool in that I liked because they also do it. It actually gets used in a different in a book. One of the solos is like punching a wound to create dark side energy, basically. And they have that moment in the thing, and they don't say anything like that he's doing that, but he's like punching his wound.
Yeah.
And the reason he's punching his wound is to create upsettedness and anger to get energy, to get dark side energy from it. At least in the books they had that. I don't know if they put that in there on purpose, but I kind of liked that.
I
throw that out there.
Hey, I love a dedicated Star Wars nerd. I just these target Star Wars.
Although I gotta say, I don't know how great that lightsaber is.
Ooh,
oh yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that goes on this. That goes on the special mention.
Yeah, that's not a great lightsaber.
I don't know, guys.
It's got a little hilt. Why,
to me, that's the only part that makes it anywhere near cool. Now, obviously, the fact that lightsaber energy is coming out of it. If that hilt was made out of Beskar or something, so that when you guys are having your goofy fights, nobody could just slide their lightsaber down and chop your fucking hand off, like happened to a bunch of motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? I would love to have something to stop that. But the fact that it's shooting out lightsaber energy is so fucking dumb. And I know that it's a visual thing, but it was like it's like an idiotic visual thing, So yeah, but I do like though the distressed, almost forced lightning look of the actual blade, because it shows you that he's not a badass Jedi like these guys. He's like a remnant, a shitty remnant of like he's what frankly Luke should have been almost like when I'm coming into this shitty world. People haven't even believed in this for. Well, in the continuity now, they've only given it like 15 years. Like 15 years, we forgot about space wizards who could fucking do ninja flips. And mind you, 15 years. Oh, fuck those guys. Never existed. Okay, so fine. But yeah, it should be this this world where you barely know enough to recreate what these Egyptians or whatever did, to where so when you do their techniques, they don't quite work, but they work good enough because the people of your time have lost the technology altogether. I just think the sword communicates that shit I said. So that's why I have a soft spot for it.
All right, fair enough.
I agree with that. I like that. I mean, if we're gonna get nitpicky about lightsabers, there's absolutely no reason at all why lightsaber duels should look like actual duels when literally you have instantaneously retractable blades. Like that should be of use when you're fighting, and it just never is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they literally should act like they're about to block it, pull it down so somebody falls off their, like
100%.
overcompensates or tries not to
Mhm.
overcompensate. There'd be a whole bunch of fun stuff you could do with that if you did
Yeah.
it right.
It'd
I
be
like
more
that.
like tag though. I think that's why they do it. I mean, because like I agree with you though. 8711 choreographing a Jedi fight, period. But especially in the way that you're talking about, where it's like combination sword fight and tag and stab fight.
And
There's
they're turning it on and off when
That's what I
they
mean,
like.
yeah.
Yeah, that actually would be real dope. That would be really fun.
well
It
because
would
it's
also
Now
be
I want
super
that.
hard to choreograph.
yeah,
Super hard.
it becomes a stabby weapon if you're turning it on and off because you're trying to pick
'cause you're
times for it to, you
Yeah.
know.
That's fun.
So all
Um,
that type of shit.
anyways, that's I do think there's one iconic weapon that we haven't brought up that I think we need to bring up, and that's Indiana Jones's whip.
Huh. We haven't brought up that this whole time.
I mean, the whip itself,
Why?
it's not like a special whip, so that would maybe make it cooler or something, but like obviously it's a key part to the characters. Like
I'll be
style.
honest, when I was a kid, like I was all in for whips just because of Indiana Jones. Like I thought
Yeah.
the whip was the coolest. And I think and partially Zorro too. Zorro was also heavy with the whip usage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, and as I got older, I fell out of love with the whip. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, it's funny. It's just like you find out how wildly impractical, beyond any
Right.
political associations with whips,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
wildly impractical nature of whips. It just, I saw this whip cracking. This bunch of fucking nerds were in the park doing giant whip cracking, like a mass whip cracking. And they were just, whoosh, and just like the different angles where the whip is going out and snapping, like one's at 8 o'clock, one's at 9 o'clock, one's at 12 o'clock. And it's just like, that's too much variance for me. And just the expert, you'd have to be Ricky Jay throwing cards to fucking actually be effective with a fucking whip.
I also think that like the movies would have you believe it's sort of like the poor man's grappling gun, but like
Right.
they're not that long, so you can't actually do all that like whipping and swinging, and that makes it less cool.
Yeah, the more you find out about it, but you know what? That's weird. Why didn't the Batarang go down? And also, like, it would never be able to be a Batarang to be able to be a boomerang. If it was heavy enough to cause you harm, it would never be able to be a boomerang, especially in that bat shape.
Well, the Bruce Timm animated opening to Batman the Animated Series would say differently, and that's all the evidence I need.
That is all the evidence I need as well.
Did Ron bite you in between? No, no. But
Well,
you
what's
guys
the alternative?
No, you're right. You're right. It's ridiculous.
The
Like, sometimes
alternative
you
is the Michael Keaton programmable one from Batman Returns.
See, and I hate that so hard that
Yeah.
I'm mad that I led us down to that thing. So that is one of my least favorite weapons of all fucking time.
Put it on the
let me-
dishonorable mention list.
Dishonorable mention. Fuck.
I gotta say though, the best probably Batarangs are the ones that explode. They make the most sense. Like
That's
they're
true.
made to be destroyed and explode. So the best ones are when he's like fighting Killer Croc and these superpower dudes, and he's got to like explode it a little bit. Those are the ones that make the most sense. That's what my vote goes for now.
They actually should make more use of that in movies, because that was always like the coolest shit that he would do in like the Justice League cartoons was he just throw those exploding Batarangs around. And they really haven't done that in the movies.
Yeah, that needs to be fixed.
Well,
Get
just
on
know
it.
that just
Get on
Matt
it, Ed.
Matt Reeves showing like Robert Pattinson taping little bits of C4 to all these truly iron forged, repurposed, bespoke Batarangs. It's just like such a grueling process.
It's a little much.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the C4 doesn't work because it's kind of random, or it just
Yeah.
explodes when he gets punched.
Yeah,
That's the problem with that idea.
Yeah.
Having to put the C4 on your body.
Every time he falls, he's got explosions going off.
Dude, just imagine, like, okay, somebody beats your ass and pushes you off a roof, and you barely shoot your grappling gun, and you barely catch yourself, but your like utility belt falls off. It just blows up everybody in an alley. You're just like, sorry guys. Ooh.
That's
They
where
all look.
that big ass bat collar comes in handy.
It's like, ooh, I blew all you guys up.
Just
Okay,
him making a call to Alfred, like, "Hey, I looked up all these guys' families. Can you send them some money?"
$2,300 should suffice. Especially if he's doing business like a real rich person. But as we dismount here, are there any weapons? You know what? I'd like to do an honorable mention for some weird ones that might be in our lives. I want to do one for Bushwhacker. Bushwhacker in the comic books. In the Marvel comic books. One of his arms, I think it's his right arm, is like been cybernetically enhanced to where it can change into different types of guns, to the point where if he points his finger at you like that, that's like a 45. If he makes two fingers, that's like Desert Eagle. If he fucking puts his hand like this and does some different shit, he can make like a shotgun. If he like, he can make like, just his arm becomes all these different gats. That shit is fresh as fuck. And they ain't never done nothing cool with that. The closest thing would be it's very much like you were talking about Claw's hand design, Bill. It's very much that. But like I said, all the different weapons, I don't know how he loads it. I don't know if weapons come. I don't know. Right. I'm Ron on that part. I don't know. But even if it was, I mean, that's fucking dope. Oh, and also honorable mention as far as a weapon, that chip from Upgrade that allows you to get super dope and it stimulates your adrenals and all the kind of shit. Sign me up for that shit without the AI on board, shit. But like if you could cook me up with a chip that would just instantly load up fighting dynamics into me and boost my adrenals to where I can really take dudes out. God damn.
Yeah.
That'd be sick as fuck. So those are my weird weapons. I love bionics, as you can tell. Anything bionic, anything organic inside the human body, I love more than outside weapons.
Well, that gets me going to the Edge of Tomorrow mech suits with the giant swords.
Oh yeah. Yeah, why didn't Final Fantasy size big ass swords come into this conversation, Ron? I think you dropped the ball on that one.
I was gonna bring that in at some point for sure. Final Fantasy's giant swords are they're dope. They're ridiculous, and I fucking love them.
That Cloud Strife sword from Final Fantasy VII is like that's some iconic shit.
It's fucking amazing. It's great, definitely. I also want to bring up two more swords, and that's Trunks from Dragon Ball Z. You guys don't watch Dragon Ball Z like I watch it, but Correct. So Frieza is one of the main bad guys, and they think he's dead, and then he shows up, and future Trunks, look, I don't need to get into it, but Trunks shows up with a sword and fucking chops up Frieza and then blasts him to a million into dust, and it's dope as shit. And no one knows the sword is very mysterious. No one knows exactly where he got it. Although if you want to delve deep into the lore, you can figure it out. But it's just a cool, dope sword, and it's just a cool moment in Dragon Ball Z too. Everybody thinks they're about to die when Frieza shows up because like Goku is on a different, like on a space adventure, and he's not there, and everybody knows that basically Frieza's gonna fucking destroy them. Because Goku is the only guy who could beat him. And then this guy just shows up and just chops him up so fast. And it's like, how like every once in a while they'll have a fight scene where it's like just complete destruction and like super, super quick or whatever. And you're like, holy shit. Like a really cool sword scene is like really just like two sword guys and they just swipe by each other and one of them and then falls over and dies. It's almost kind of like that, except for he's just like, he like dodges Frieza and then it's just like, and then just does this little hand thing and blows him up. And that's the whole scene. And it's like a 4-second scene. And then he sheathes the sword and it's just dope as shit. So for Dragon Ball Z fans, Trunks sword.
Nice.
Is that the sword or the guy though? Like I'm a little confused.
Yes, it is the guy, but the sword, here's the other thing. The sword is special because like these guys get like hit by blasts that destroy planets and shake them off. So That's the sword has to be a special sword to chop through people who are like, basically indestructible. So So it
Okay.
does have to be a pretty cool sword. And then the other sword I want to talk about is, of course, Inigo Montoya's rapier from The Princess Bride.
Hmm.
Oh yeah,
That's
that's
again more
fun.
the guy than the sword, though, you know?
Well, the sword's special because he got it from his dad.
From his father. I get that.
So, and it's like a beautifully, like if you go look it up, it's like a really cool looking sword. So,
The six-fingered man. Yeah, dude. That's you know what I think. Okay, well, if we're gonna go emotionality, the one-armed man's arm. Fuck it. I mean, I'm quite sure he used it in his crimes, so I can't say it's not a weapon.
All right,
Ooh, who's the
I
guy
got
who has the
two.
fake hand in Bond?
Oh, Claw? No, not Claw. That's
Iron Fist? I don't
Inspector
what does he
Inspector
what's his name?
Gadget. Fuck no. What's that?
What am I
No,
thinking of? Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm not thinking of that. That's Enter the Dragon, the dude who can take off his hand and put on all
yeah.
the different stuff.
I think that's
That just
Dr.
popped into my head.
Hand. Isn't that, I think his name is Dr. Hand or something or
Yeah,
something.
something like that. They call him
Mr.
Mr.
Hand?
Hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Claw was Inspector Gadget, by the way.
Yeah.
Wait, so here's my two weird honorable mentions. Number one, the Green Ranger's flute dagger from Power Rangers.
Oh my God.
Dude,
Yes.
Billy Business would be jizzing all over the podcast right now.
Yeah, this is great. That's
We should
great.
clip this and send it to Bill.
We definitely should.
Yeah.
But legit, like, I'm a little bit younger than you guys, just a touch. So I did catch a little bit of Power Rangers.
Mhm.
And there was this dude had a dagger, which was dope looking in and of itself. And he was like the rogue Power Ranger. So that was cool. But he would play that thing like a flute with his fake helmet lips somehow.
Yep.
And then it would summon his Dragon Zord. And that was pretty awesome.
Dude,
It was pretty dope.
flutes to summon things are just dope. Like that's something fresh.
And then the other one is Kevin Matchstick's baseball bat from the comic series Mage, which essentially is like incognito Excalibur. So it's like an enchanted baseball bat that he can whoop some ass with. I like that.
Which if they'd just given to Harley Quinn, I could have believed the first Suicide Squad.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez.
Oh, fucking Excalibur bat on Harley Quinn. I just think that's a lot. I think that's triple mumbo jumbo, but I get what you're saying.
Basically, anyways, it doesn't matter. We don't need to get into the first Suicide Squad's problems. We don't need to do that.
No, we do not.
Right. Or and he could say dishonorable mention Harley Quinn's dumbass bat because it does seem to have imbued her with the power to stand toe to toe with gods, and we don't need to belabor it more than that. So, you know what? Like I said, I want one thing, and maybe this is a whole nother Patreon at some point. What?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there is one thing I do love. I love her ridiculous giant hammer. I don't know why. Yeah, I love the mallet. I know it's impractical. And it doesn't make sense, but I do love the aesthetic of it. So I will say I support the hammer, the mallet.
Yeah, I can't concur.
You can't do it. You can't concur.
I mean,
dude,
I can't even get behind Thor's hammer, let alone Harley Quinn's big ass mallet.
Oh, you don't like
wait
Thor's
a minute.
hammer?
We didn't talk about Thor's hammer. Okay, we got to get this on tape. Dishonorable mention from Bill for Thor's hammer.
Interesting.
Look, I get it. It's part of the legend going all the way back to Norse folklore. Mm-hmm. There's something cool about the fact that like he can, he takes his cane and he slams it on the ground and it turns into the hammer, and that's how he turns into Thor. I dig all that. The flying mechanics is a step too far for me. Mm-hmm, the enchantment on it, I could take or leave. I don't really care. It's one of those things where it's like its power set is so nebulous that like I can't get behind it. And it's not the sort of thing, at least for me, that like when I saw it as a kid, I wanted to have it so I could play with it. Like Thor's hammer just wasn't that for me.
That is interesting because it is way down on, and you know what? We didn't talk about the utility belt, but the utility belt is the best weapon of all time because it can be anything and do anything, and it encompasses everything.
Yes to that, but as a kid, Spider-Man's web shooters are the best weapon of all time.
Ooh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's web shooters
Yeah.
win everything to me. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's as we dismount, that's what we'll give the comic book people. Why is Spider-Man's web shooters thus? And my quick treatise on it is he would not be an effective superhero without them. Jumping around and dodging stuff and being strong. That sounds like literally every fucking body that has any sort of powers. But the webs put it all the way over.
It is the most unique sci-fi weapon ever created, perfect for both his motif and his character because it leans into, he is a science nerd and he's doing all this stuff surreptitiously on the side and he puts them together himself. And like the science is just convincing enough that I can buy it, even though damn those web cartridges have to be super compressed to have all that shit in there. But
Still,
they're the GOAT.
Yeah, agreed. I don't have an argument. I think that's one of the best. I even like when they weaponize it with silly different things. When you're playing the Spider-Man game and you can do like shots and you can do ones that like stick to the thing and then are almost like mines and like grab dudes and stick them to cars and stuff like that. Like all the stuff you can do with webbing is just like the dopest shit ever.
It's both his mode of transportation, an offensive weapon, and a way to incapacitate to wrap up bad guys when he's done. It's all things in one. Like, it's so dope.
Yeah. And I think it's really it's you said it, it's thematic. All the best weapons are thematic. Even so going back to the lightsaber spiritually, you have to be a spiritual person to even build one of these things, and of course to wield it. With the Spider-Man webs or with the Batman utility belt, it's not a gun. You got to reach inside, know where the stuff is, grab the tool out for the job, be intelligent enough to use the tool in this way. Be intelligent. It's like Batman is solving giant problems with like an Allen wrench, some bombs, and a grappling hook. You know what I'm saying? And his belt. Like he's like a Mandalorian in that way. I got these 3 tools that I'm gonna figure out how to play really good. You know what I mean? And all that. I just think the web shooters are so non-lethal too. I just love that. It's thematic in his character. He's not a guy who's ever going to kill you or anything like that. The most he wants to do, as Bill said, is incapacitate you. And it's holistic in a way that I wish, like stuff like the Green Lantern ring, which never came up once, that ever even got thought of in this conversation. Because when you look at the Green Lantern ring, even with all that mythology, it does not have the pathos of Spider-Man's webbing or the that old school, the native people of everywhere using every part of everything because you don't know when you're going to come up on the next buffalo. Homeboy's like, I need to get the most out of webs. I need to be able to tie fools up. It has to be a certain amount of tensile strength. I also need to be able to break it if I need to. So it needs to be about strong enough to do X, Y, and Z, but it needs to be strong enough for me to catch stuff. I need to know exactly how much of it to use to catch a bus or X, Y, and Z. You have to use it correctly is what I'm trying to say. Even though it's so dope, the onus is on you to use it correctly. And to me, that's part of a fresh weapon.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting too. The more we keep talking, the more you realize like, all the most popular characters of all time all have badass singular weapons. It's an interesting correlation I'm making.
Yeah, like Iron Fist. He has that Iron Fist,
Oh yeah, dude, that's another thing. Iron Fist being called the living weapon. He's got to go on the list of shitty weapons. He said he's got to go on the strip of shitty weapons, dude. He sucks.
Agreed.
So yeah,
I mean, look, I want a weapon. The most important thing I could have for a weapon is I need to say a rhyme to make it work. All right. In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. All right. All I'm saying. If you let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. And it's very important that I have a saying to charge my weapon.
Dude, the Green Lantern battle rap ciphers on planet Oa. It's like, this dude's a planet. His real name's Clarence.
I kind of love the concept of like Green Lantern's power ring works sort of like Zatanna having to say shit backwards. Like they have to throw down a rap verse in order to make it do anything.
I mean, it
Oh
would
my
make it
god,
pretty fresh.
it
That would
would.
make it dope. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you have some else worlds where like the Green Lantern ring falls at Queensbridge in fucking 1992, and fucking
Boom,
Nas finds it. It's like,
boom.
dude, Nas, the greatest superhero of all time. Dude, he fights Mob Deep, even though they were friends in real life. Mob Deep would turn evil if they found the other rings, the yellow rings.
I mean,
But
MF
yeah,
Doom's right there. He's right there.
oh yeah, well he's got MF Doom got the ultimate nullifier because he beat the shit out of Mr. Fantastic. Uh, but yeah, so ultimate nullifier goes on the list too as far as ignominious weapons. I think because it's just dumb. It's not. It's really dumb. You know what I
It
mean?
is. Although that does bring up one that we should mention, which is Silver Surfer Surfboard.
Oh shit! Now wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is that greatest weapon or greatest vehicle?
You know what? That's a good point. It
Yeah.
doesn't have a lot of offensive capabilities.
Oh
But
shit! Are we gonna have
as
to
a
do
we'll have to
another
say-
episode on greatest vehicles?
I think
Yeah,
we are.
We absolutely will. However, that does now bring me even further to another one. And I'm not going to say mother boxes because that might also be a greatest vehicle, but I will say
Yeah.
fucking Orion's Astro harness,
Ooh,
both a vehicle but also a badass weapon.
Yeah, yeah. He's like driving a turret into battle all the time. I thought that was really interesting. It's one of the I think he is one of those standout new gods because that it's like, hey, we're gonna go into battle. Let me jump into this harness that shoots stuff. You know, and you have a character in your graphic novel coming up that's sort of homages that. So I love that. Yeah, weapon,
I
transportation.
just yeah, I love the idea of like it's so unique as like a mode of transportation, even the fact that it's like you're in this rig and your feet are just sort of like harnessed in, you know what I mean? Like you're wearing it, you don't have to get in it, and it's not a jetpack. It's weirder than it. Like, how would you even steer that thing? I just love that it's just so unique.
Yeah, yeah, that is pretty hardcore. Well, Rod, you got any weird ones before we get out of here? Like,
I mean, look,
and
we
not
did forget the
swords.
no, not. I mean, look, there's probably more swords that I could talk about, like
There's so many
absolutely
swords.
Voltron sword, etc., etc. But I do want to mention the most important weapon of all time, and that's Odd Job's hat. Okay, look,
that thing.
no,
That thing really was awesome. I was backstage somewhere. Somebody said something about somebody was gonna go fight this one guy, and I was like, "This guy's huge and he knows martial arts." I think it was Tate Fletcher actually. Somebody at the Comedy Store was gonna go fuck with Tate Fletcher from the original John Wick movies. And I said, shit, you go fight Tate Fletcher. You might as well challenge Odd Job to a hat throwing contest. And motherfuckers fell out laughing at that shit. And I was like, it was right on top of the dome too. I was like, damn, that shit's hot. But yeah, you're right, dude. Odd Job's hat is serious business.
yeah,
Like,
it'll chop a head off.
chop statues' heads off.
See, I go straight to Kung Lao's hat from Mortal Kombat because Kung Lao's hat is Odd Job's hat done right.
Yeah,
That's true. But you know where I go from that though? I go to LL Cool J's hat, which is like a shark's fin from Deep Blue Sea soundtrack.
Oh my god!
Check and mate.
I mean it's a weapon to get pussy. So,
Dude, well, he mostly just licks his lips and stuff. But yeah, but
you get the implication though.
you get it. Yeah, you figured it out. Yeah,
dude. But guys, I think this has been a great overview of all these weapons. I'm sad we gave Voltron's sword short shrift, but in fact, it did not have special capabilities. It just sort of came out of two lions' mouths, and
Yeah.
that was the cool part about it. And that's the last thing I'll say about this whole subject. A good weapon is something to where if you have it and you're using it to the best of your ability, the enemy can still beat you, right? Because you're a hero. You're using your weapon to the best of your ability. So as masterful as Spider-Man is with webs, if he gets into the proper situation, those webs are helping him to not die. not
Mhm.
oppressing people and beating them up and overwhelming them with force. All the best weapons do that. Lightsaber,
Yeah.
you can have a lightsaber all day. Some other motherfucker got 6 of them. You're doing flips and you got to put up your force field and got to push them down and all this kind of shit. All the good weapons are not ultimate anything. They don't blow up a whole fucking planet. They don't, the sword of Voltron was whack as fuck because I was like, yo, why does he fuck around with these dudes? As a little kid, I was like, why is he fucking around with these dudes? Every battle, shoot him with the right glove, shoot him with the left glove, throw a bomb at him, kick him in the nuts, whatever. And then the monster inevitably was like, oh, that's pussy shit. And then he just whips out the sword and kills him in 1 second, like your boy Trunks. Every fucking episode was that. Like, that isn't cool. If you can get your hand on your weapon, everything is just over. That's the definition of uncool. And that's why the Voltron sword actually didn't make it into this conversation hardcore. So just is what it is. So thank you guys for listening to The Greatest Pod. Thank you guys for supporting our Patreon, patreon.com/The Greatest Pod. Thank you for sending us emails at emailthegreatestpod@gmail.com. That is the address. And thank you for leaving reviews. And thank you for not making an excuse as you can't leave a review. You got Spotify, you got Apple, iTunes, or whatever. You got one of these goddamn things. And even if you don't, you could log in there one good time and leave us a review as a final rebellious act to help your boys out. All kind of shit like that. Weaponize your voice on the goddamn algorithm and tell motherfuckers to come listen to us because you know this shit is hot. And that's what I have to say about it. So you guys can do the dismount.
Yeah, well, there is one more very important thing that I love to say that Ed's favorite thing when I say it, and that's mash that subscribe button. But seriously,
Ed just used a weapon on himself.
We're on YouTube. Subscribe to us, and also subscribe to the podcast as well, so you get it in your feed. Thanks for listening. And Bill, how should we take it out?
Well, thank you for a limited range, highly adaptable, homemade episode of The Greatest Pod.